All right, we have an exciting Tuesday today. We have my good friend Jack on our webinar from the CompTech Roundup and also a comp leader at Monzo. Jack is at the forefront of AI tools for compensation teams, AI tools for HR teams, has done a lot of advisory work in this space as well, and has a lot of really amazing thought leadership. So, Jack, I am super excited to kind of have you today.
Likewise, Haris, I'm really excited to be here, to be talking about AI and rewards. And what a day to be talking about this topic when both Claude and ChatGPT were down earlier today.
I
Hope
know
it,
everyone's focused on you today, Jack. Jack GPT, if that's that's the place to be if you want to learn about AI today for sure.
I wonder if
Um,
companies have already started including it in their business continuity plans because it can be disrupting, considering how much we're using it nowadays. We'll be talking
Yeah,
about this.
there definitely is AI insurance for example, so that's certainly baked into the plans. But I know, Jack, we're jumping ahead. Let's start with a round of intros. Everyone, or lots of people know me as the founder and CEO of CandorIQ. I'm Haris, based out of the U.S. in San Francisco, and then we have Jack today. I believe based out of London, sometimes in Spain. And Jack, would you mind introducing yourself as well, real quick?
Name is Jack. Been in the compensation space for over 12 years. The first 7 as a consultant, and the past 5 in high growth, fast tech companies. So I always say I didn't choose compensation; it chose me. It kind of knew. I think I had a secret crush for imperfect data, human bias, and just people complaining about their pay every day. So 12 years in, we're still here.
Amazing. So you're a glutton for punishment, a glutton for hard work. But yeah, there's certainly, comp is the number one line on the balance sheet. It's what people care about, and getting it right is ever harder. So thank you for all the work you've done as an operator and as a consultant as well. Um, so today, team, we're going to talk about AI, how to really make it practical. And we have the perfect speaker here to talk about that, how to leverage AI, how to do it as a total rewards professional, as a total rewards and compensation team, how to deploy it within your organization, the crawl, walk, run. Um, there's a lot of work to be done to make the hype a reality. And Jack's going to go really practical around how he's done it, how his organizations have done it. So it's gonna be an exciting topic. But Jack, let's start really at the top, right? What's the problem statement? There is a lot of AI excitement. There's a lot of AI hype. There's a lot less AI in deployed in execution, at least successfully. And so there is this gap. What do you think is creating that gap between the hype and adoption when it comes to AI and total rewards?
Very good question, Harris. Look, I think we're all in the same boat, more or less. We are bombarded
Yeah.
with AI news every day. Like I've set up my Perplexity account to get notified every time that Gemini or Anthropic or OpenAI release an update, and they come up more often than I thought. So I guess we're all in this situation where we're being bombarded with information. We don't really know what it means for us. So that's probably one of the first reasons why there's this lag between technology development, new features coming out, and adoption. It's really a lot for people to process on top of their daily jobs, daily responsibilities. It's just an extra pair of task that we now have to do to maintain, to keep up with the world, and
Yeah.
also to upskill for those that are interested in upskilling, right? So, and it's a very human thing, right? We can only process this much of information at a time. And you have people that are gifted with high IQs and they can process more, and people that are less gifted, but they probably have more other gifts like emotional intelligence, right? So I would say that's the first reason. Now, if we want to get very specific and apply this in the reward space, what makes things even more interesting is that the type of data that compensation teams consume every day is highly sensitive, right? And with that comes all sorts of legal challenges. Whether a company adopts AI or not is not a one-man show, one-man call, right? Especially when it comes to these types of data, you probably will need to get someone from the legal team involved, someone from the compliance team involved, someone from the business, someone from the people team. And the more touch points and the more stakeholders are involved in the decision, naturally, the more longer it's going to take. And it's not necessarily a bad thing if at the end of the road, the decision being taken is the right one or the one that solves the company's problem. But there are also some shortcomings or pitfalls of not, taking action. Waiting is great, and if you are using that waiting period to put your ducks in a row and prepare for a successful launch, as opposed to waiting just because maybe you're not interested in learning, maybe you don't believe in these technologies, or any other reason that you can think of. So I think there's two side of the coin there, that explain why adoption is lagging behind. But there are also examples of companies, I can count them on one hand, to be honest, but there are examples of companies that are already at the forefront of AI adoption, meaning that they're using several AI agents within certain workflows to get some work done. So we're not just talking about polishing up your merit cycle FAQs or your emails. We're actually talking about AI agents with access to your tools, your workflow, that, let's say, you gotta get from A to Z. The agent gets you from A to B. Then there's a human checkpoint, and then another agent takes you from B to C, and so on and so forth. So it is possible. It's just a matter of asking yourself, like, if you're an in-house reward leader, what's your company attitude towards adopting AI? Because it cannot just live in silence as a department, right? There has to be a company vision on how they want to adopt AI, with inputs from all departmental leaders, including HR, on how they will bring it to life.
Yeah, Jack, so many good points there. I'll repeat some of them and call out some kind of sub bullet points too. One is you need a lot of data, right? Garbage in, garbage out. So for AI to be successful, you have to be able to bring in all the data, and you need data from many different places. It's not just about market benchmarks. It's about your pay strategy. It's about where your employees are, your business KPIs. You really have to triangulate all of that data and bring it into one single place to be effective. And you're absolutely right. This is a multiplayer decision, right? Like, yes, the total rewards team is kind of driving a lot of it, but who's communicating it? Is it the HR team? Who's budgeting for it? It's the finance team. Who's hiring based off this? It's the talent team. So it's ultimately a multiplayer decision. So you need that cross department consensus and alignment. That's, I think, really key. So 100% agree there. And I think the other thing you called out that was also important was there has to be some sort of a top-down mandate, right? Like, you have business KPIs that you measure against it. You have engineering KPIs you measure against it. You have sales KPIs you measure against it. You need to be as scientific about it. You need to have AI KPIs and measure against it, right? It might be things like productivity, might be like other metrics as well, but you need to be able to measure. So I think those are some good points. On the last one, the one thing I'll call out is maybe people, and you can talk about this too. I think one of the issues here is people have the fear and leadership has fear around like adopting AI. What it can't do. They have expectations. Like the second we implement a customer support tool, half our tickets go away. The second we implement an HR or comp tool or finance tool, like I don't know, a third of the work goes away. And I think there's a gap. There's a much more of a nuance there. But like I know you've coached a lot of companies on that. So do you mind talking about some of those pain points too?
Yeah, look, I think it's ultimately not much a question of did we find the right tools that's holding companies back, but
Yeah.
it's a question of a lot of companies feeling FOMO on this. But what many companies and many people realize is that actually you've been using AI for quite some time without maybe even knowing it. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Like before AI, we had machine learning, which were more deterministic in nature, less stochastic, meaning less based on probabilities, and they were generating, they were predicting recommendations for us. A good one is like Netflix. I've been a huge Netflix fan. I've been watching many programs for the past 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And because I love Witcher so much, now Netflix knows, hang on, like you might also like this other program that's kind of fantasy or science fiction and that kind of stuff. So implicitly, a lot of people they've been using different forms of AI that without even knowing it. So I think realizing that really helps breaking down the FOMO. But to your point, like to go from using it in your personal life to using it in your professional life, there needs to be a wider discussion over, right, how are we gonna measure the success? What are success criteria? And that's probably one of the first slides you would put in a deck if you're pitching, using like adopting AI tool or CompTech vendor with AI features to your CFO. That's the one thing that should come up in the first 3 slides that you present to them.
I think that's a good point, Giac. That like it really starts with like people and process. And I think the other thing, at least when it comes to like technology part of it, is what we've seen. A lot of the vendors have like cursory level like AI capabilities. If you can just do it in Chat GPT, what's the value, right? Like it really needs to have domain expertise, needs to have nuance, needs to be in the context of like the workflow that you're doing. It needs to be more secure, of course, all of those different things. So like part of it is, are the vendors kind of going deeper, going the extra mile and meeting the user, where they do their work?
I'd love to hear in the comments from our listeners, how are they using AI nowadays? Because to your point, you can use the like generic large language modules like ChatGPT for a lot of great things. I can tell you what I've been doing a lot. Job descriptions. Like I remember 10 years ago, there was this insurance company that paid the consulting company I was working for at the time, Conferry, paid a huge amount, like hundreds of thousands of euros to get consultants like me down to their offices to speak to managers, to job holders, and get their job pages. Now with AI, ChatGPT can probably do a good job at that, but it's probably not going to be customized with your company format, your company language. It is a great starting point, but what these generic large language modules lack is context. And even more so, even when you provide them the context, they tend to forget. They've got like context rot, I think we call it in the business. Their memory is not like a endless pit. So you have to constantly repeat yourself and copy and paste the same inputs you want it to remember before providing an answer because of that. Now with bespoke AI applications that are purpose built for a specific task, that problem goes away because you narrow its existence to one specific purpose. And that AI application is built for that. If you can train it with your context, your data, if you're able to replicate the outcomes, that problem goes away. So this is all to say that it's great to have access to these more generic large language modules, and many companies have taken huge steps in licensing the technology and providing it to teams, but that's just the first step. Especially when it comes to compensation, where a bad decision can cost you a lot, can cost you an unfair dismissal claim, it can cost you a P equity claim. It's good to start thinking about, right, how can we customize these large language modules, how we can build tools on top of it that are, their purpose is specifically one or two, not too many, because that makes, that separates a good outcome, a good decision from a bad one.
Okay, great. So again, team, if you have any comments or statements around how you are using AI and how your team's using AI, please drop them. We see some coming in. Giac, the first one is someone mentioned, I use it for job descriptions, salary reviews, and scale graphics. Those are pretty good use cases. Do you want to talk about some of those? I know we're also going into solutions and in the second half of our conversation, but yeah, curious to get your take and reaction there too.
Well, I can tell you, yeah, definitely good examples and timely, because many companies are entering comp planning / peer review season right now. The one thing I would call out, though, when it comes to salary review, is that let's remember that AI modules are probabilistic in nature. I'd love to distinguish that between deterministic outcomes and probabilistic. So if the question is, what percentage increase should I give to Eddie or Laura, you might ask that question to 3 different large language modules, hopefully without providing your employee roster and all the details, because that would be trouble. And you'll get 3 different answers. You can ask Gemini, Claude, and ChatGPT. So it's very important that we remember that asking the AI to make decisions on pay, it will give you a probabilistic outcome. And if something goes wrong and you have to defend that decision in a tribunal or court, can't just say, hey, but the AI told me to do so, right? So this is all to say, I think it's great to develop some sort of a skeptic muscle when it comes to AI. There's a lot of headlines that are saying, hey, you can run your merit cycle in 10 minutes with this, that's great. But let's not forget, one thing is to automate things like analytics and workflows to get to faster decisions. And one thing is to make good decisions, right? You don't want to leave probabilistic outcomes, decisions based on probability, up to an AI, because that's where you would get in trouble. And also because the outcome will be different. So while there are AI features that are available through CompTech vendors that help you running the cycle more smoothly, more timely, giving you context and decision, it's always good to remember that the decision itself should be a human, because it's probabilistic in nature, and AI wasn't designed to make those decisions, right? It was designed to ask the right questions, to help you reason and ensure that you make those decisions in a more timely, more informed manner. So that's my 2 cents on the salary review. Scale graphics, would love to learn more about that. A lot of companies think they're using Gemini specifically for image creation and branding. There are also other tools like Figma that help you with designing websites, and a lot of great, there's so much you can do nowadays, and scale graphic is probably one of the examples that apply to it, especially when you're designing a deck for managers. I think it's helpful, and you don't run the risk of that deterministic / probabilistic outcomes that I mentioned earlier, because you're designing a graphic.
Maybe great time to kind of switch gears a little bit, Giac, and we'll continue with, we'll pause for more questions as well. So we've identified a lot of different problems and challenges that you called out. Ira also calls out the data sensitivity and security part of it on the comment as well. How do you think about like responsible AI? I know you have a framework around this. So can you maybe talk more, and if there's anything you want to share or show, that would be great too.
100%. I can give you some color in that. So I agree. Risk is a major factor, especially in reward, where we're touching on sensitive data and personal data. And not just that, but we're affecting people's livelihoods, right? So there's a chance that things can explode if you get them wrong. One nuance, though, the biggest risk right now is not AI and reward itself, but is this unmanaged, decentralized, bottom-up using of AI. Yeah. That's the real risk. For instance, analysts pasting comp data in random tools, pilots with no guardrails, things like that. So I think about responsible use of AI. I can think of 3 buckets. The first criteria in my framework would be training and purpose. Like before you even touch pay data, ask yourself, what problem is this model actually going to solve for your team and the business? How is it being trained? On what data? Is your data clean? Is your job architecture robust? Is the model using historical decisions that already contain bias because they weren't being checked? Or is it just predicting more of the same? One thing I always like to tell myself whenever I kind of feel of like delegating decision making to AI, which it's a constant struggle. Like I'm always like, no, like this tool should help me make the decision. There's a lot of chatter about AI helping you making decisions faster, and it's true. But those that make good decisions will make them faster. But it's also true that those individuals that make wrong decisions, AI will just help them make them faster. So it's not much about the speed, yes, but it's also about making the right decision itself. And with training and purpose, when designing a tool, these are fundamental. There's a second criteria that I look in terms of making sure that my AI usage is responsible, which is more on the governance and data security side. I know, very boring, absolutely critical though. Where is the data housed? Is it staying within my HRIS, or is it stored in some data warehouse somewhere in Cambodia? Is it going to the vendor, or is it staying within our parameters? What protections are in place? I think you and me talked about PII before. And this is helpful for confidential pay ranges, grant value, deal terms if you're doing M&A. Who can really see that? Is there a DPIA in place? Maybe a document that elaborates on what if a disaster happens? Do we have a recovery plan? Do we have audit logs?
Yeah.
All of this stuff is extremely boring if you ask me, but it's also to the reward team the ones in the room should have those conversations, not just security and legal, reward team should be involved in these conversations as well, because ultimately they are the ones using the tool. And third, and it's the last one, accuracy and explainability, especially for pay decisions. Explainability, I think we can all agree, it's not a nice to have. It's your defense. it's your walls. It's internally and legally. Any AI generated recommendation should be traceable at source, and you should be able to say it in plain language so that other stakeholders can understand. So for instance, based on this role, this location, based on this performance rating, based on this market data, the model suggests X because of Y. And this is really the hardest part, because a lot of this, it's really hard. What is a good decision in comp, right? After 12 years in the business, I sometimes still struggle deciding whether this role should be a P3 and a P4, right?
Yeah.
Which makes the risks even greater, and hence the importance of having these three things or criteria in place: training, the data security and governance, and the explainability of your AI replies.
Great. And Giac, there, like some of the things that I know you and I have talked about is like with automation, you want humans in the loop as well. So it doesn't mean like you go from 0 to 100%, right? So can you talk a little bit more about how, like some more around like deployment and rollout as well, like and frameworks there?
For sure, like a human in the loop is the right. It will always be needed when it comes to probabilistic outcomes, right? Because the AI, again, it's giving you answers based on what it thinks is the most likely or probable outcome, right? So even with all the context and the guardrails, it will not replace the need for a human to validate decision, because ultimately we are the ones to be to be responsible for it. In terms of adopting AI with a human in the loop, I can think of three main not ideas, but like steps. The first is to set your principles. Like before you even decide to choose your tools or select a vendor, you want to be really explicit about your principles. Human-owned pay decisions. AI is an assistant, not an authority. A lot of people like to think of it as a reward analyst on steroids, and I think that really makes the cut. Every use case must support your pay philosophy, and that is why a human in the loop is so important. It is not just your pay philosophy, but it's also your legal obligations, your privacy standards. It's really at the core of AI usage. The second step, I would make sure that you pick the right tasks. Ask yourself, what exactly do I want the AI to do, and how is supposed to help me? So a lot of the comments in the chat called out, great examples of user cases, and it's testament to one of my favorite ways of thinking about it is to start small and boring. You can be excited about the future. You can be excited about things you want to do in the future, but it's always better to start small. Things like drafting job descriptions, cleansing data for comp cycle, drafting first cut, manager comms. All that high volume and low drama work can be something that the AI can do for you in quite a efficient and responsible fashion without letting AI decide base pay, for instance. The third, I would say, is defining your inputs and outputs, and defining what it means to get things done. So for each task, you want to be very clear what data it can see, what it should never see, what does a good output look like, and the sort of pitfalls you want it to avoid. And you would need to write that. You would write that in a reusable prompt or workflow, so it's consistent rather than vibe based. Though I am a big fan of vibe coding, we might want to talk about that later, but maybe not for this specific purpose. And to your point, the human checkpoints are at the core of it. You still want to have reward or HRBPs, reviewing recommendations, when it comes to pay, checking bias, challenging odd results. You want to put those hard stops in place so that anything that sits outside of the guidelines can be touched by human and it's sort of validated. So yeah, that would be my, I said 3, but it's actually 4 steps now, framework. And just to throw in the last one just came to mind, you want to make sure that this is scalable, especially if you're, AI believer and you want to bring AI in more and more workflows. You want to look back at where AI got things wrong, where it got it right, and ask yourself that this AI tool that you brought in, did it generally save you time? Did it improve the quality of your decisions? And when people made overrides, are you able to find out why? Because that ultimately, it's all good input that you can plug into training of the model so that next time the AI can make better decisions, and that's how you scale it.
Yeah, those are some great points. One thing I'll add is for like a good way to think about rolling out AI is kind of taking the approach of agile, right? Like software engineering development. You don't go from like an alpha product to a perfect product and then it's done. It's an iterative process. So same with leveraging AI for compensation and total rewards, communicating that to the organization, setting KPIs, which we talked about, iterating. Some things you might get wrong, some things you'll absolutely get right. And I think having that mindset, communicating that out so people know and understand, I think is key. And then you can, do a crawl, walk, run, and roll out. You mentioned this too, like bits and pieces. You don't have to ship the kitchen sink on day one. Like, do bits and pieces, show success, go to the next step, and iterate and iterate and iterate. I think that's also kind of really important in terms of execution. So I know people are taking lots of notes, but don't worry, team. Like, if you're interested in some of the frameworks that Giac shared, please follow Giac, follow CandorIQ, and we're going to share out some of these frameworks after our call as well, so that you have them access and you don't have to write everything down today. But let's shift gears, Giac. So I know people are excited to hear about some of the real world examples of AI that's worked in the world of total rewards and compensation. What have you done that's been successful as an individual? What have some of the organizations that you work with done that have been effective? So would love for you to share some practical success stories.
There's a few ones that I can think about that are also, part of the integral parts of the services that CompTech vendors now offer. Manager self-service when it comes to job creation is definitely one, as well as offer optimization. So in my previous job, we used a tool that provided guidance on offer negotiations and positioning at the moment of the offer being raised, like the requisition being created and the offer being raised. So I think that's really a key example where you're seeing companies using AI nowadays, is really to tackle those tasks that are high volume and tedious. Unless you tell me that you enjoy approving offers, which can be, I think, possible. There's people that enjoy them, but a lot of comp partners, more often than not, they feel like it's transactional work. They rather get to a solution fast, but not just because they feel it, but because the business is waiting for an answer to start, hiring. So that is definitely one. Another way I've seen in real life, like AI applied to reward workflows, is in anomaly detection in pay equity reviews. Now, it's very important to stress out the AI I'm referring to wasn't like solutions how to get those gaps fixed, because there's so much nuance and context that goes into that, but it was about detecting the anomaly themselves. Something that could generally, something that saved me hours of work, despite how much I love building regression modules and finding, data points that sit outside of the confidence interval where my p-value, you can get statistical as much as you want. Like, this is all math. But now I've got an AI that does that detection part for me. And I'm left with, oh, great. I fetched the T already. The AI fetched the T for me. Now it's up to me to decide what to do with it. And I guess there's a lot more, right? Because merit cycles are it's about to kick in the pay review season, and there's one tool I used to draft answers to very common questions that are asked by managers in my business. So train the AI with the exact questions that you get will help you draft answers that not only are getting on your table quicker, so you can you're able to service the business in a more timely fashion, but they're also reliable answers because they're based on questions and answers that you've given in the past. The key, though, is making sure that those answers you give in the past weren't biased, right? So that's, again, where the human in the loop intervention is required at time, not just when using the AI, but when training the model. The one thing I'd like to say is all of these great tools and applications are great, but be wary of people that say, hey, I've updated, like I've ran my merit cycle in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't believe headlines like that at all, because there's a high chance that, yes, AI can definitely automate a merit cycle for you if it's totally formulaic, but is it making the right decisions, right? There's a chance that, that cycle that was wrapped up in 3 minutes is packed with, potential, just opportunities for contrast and unfair dismissals, pay equity claims that we want
And
to.
Giac, like you might not be feeding it all the data, right? Like, do you know about where the budgets are, or what are you optimizing for as a company? Like, there's a lot of nuance and data that's missing, right? Like, even if you have all employee information and pay ranges, it's missing a lot of company context. So ultimately, you still need the human to bring in that context. Yes, maybe you can bring in more and more with tools. But yeah, like, it's still a very human decision, right? Like, there's only so many ways you can slice the pie.
It is. I think it's just a good reminder that, I mean, AI is not bad. It helped me catch so many misalignments in a merit cycle, but then it was up to me to decide what to do with those misalignments. And the conversations I had didn't take me 3 minutes. It took me quite a while to get people
Yeah.
in page, and there's a lot of stakeholder management, and that's pretty much what humans are good at compared to AI. Building consensus, facilitating conversations, all of that you'll find plenty of it in the merit cycle, right? Because it's a very emotive subject when it comes to providing grant increases. So yes, you can probably do a lot with AI in a merit cycle, but it's probably going to take you more than 3 minutes.
Yeah. Those are some great examples. Some of the other ones I'll throw out and are like you said, modeling, right? Like, whether it's like gender pay gap analysis or pay versus performance, there's a lot of charts and analytics that you might want to put together that takes time. And like, AI can certainly help with that. We can certainly help with that, but like, a lot of tools might be able to as well. And doing it on the fly and making tweaks and changes and iterating. And so, and the other thing I wanted to call out is the AI could ideally help you be a bit more forward looking and predictive too. So not just retroactive, but like highlighting things for you in advance as a comp professional. So I know comp people always are kind of feel like they're, running behind. It's a constant like catch up game. And I think AI is an opportunity for the first time where you can hopefully be ahead of the curve as well, and kind of be forward looking. And so I think that's a pretty big opportunity.
100%. And let's think about what, like, how would you, to have that kind of mindset, what should a reward professional do? Because generally there's a lot of chatter about AI skills, and yes, prompt engineering is key. I love to think about it as just people good at writing good questions. Basically, that's so prompt engineering is you're articulating well your questions and your commands to AI. But there are a few very human-centric skills that distinguish a reward leader that is good at adopting AI from a bad one. And it is always down to learning. The moment you decide to love learning, you'll be able to move incredibly fast. You'll spend your evenings, on ChatGPT, on Claude, or any other tool that you're using in-house, and you'll like it. You won't feel it as a burden, right? So we said that we're all being bombarded by news, and you have to make a decision. You have to decide whether you feel like inundated by it
Yeah.
and out of control, or if you feel generally excited of it, right? There's new tools, new regulations, there's new game-changing features on LinkedIn, being announced on LinkedIn every month. So if your mindset is, another thing to learn, yeah, it will just feel like exhausting. But if you treat it as a structured play and tinkering, you will cope a lot better. I'm 35 years old and I still have toys. They're just called different names now. They're Claude Code and ChatGPT. Before it was GTA and Age of
Yeah.
Empires, right? So I think that's what really is important and applies across all age brackets and generations. In order to be a great adopter of AI, you have to have that mindset of learning to love learning, because it starts all from that. And then if you have a team, share what you've learned. Like, people often ask to get ideas or visibility, especially younger generations. And most of it comes from just trying out new things, like trying user cases, seeing what worked, what not, and what has failed, and what was successful. That attracts inbound learning opportunities. So if you can nail these two things, and it all starts from your mindset, then you're ready to tackle other skills such as prompt hygiene, prompt engineering, which are very, they're frequent buzzwords popping up in job descriptions nowadays. So that'd be my advice.
And Giac, you're already sharing like like some good advice for total rewards teams. But how do you think, like, kind of looking into 2026 now, how do you think the skills required of comp professionals and leaders, total rewards leaders, is changing? The expectations for work, how is that changing as well in 2026? Can you talk about, like, future of AI and how it's impacting our function?
It's impacting our function in many ways, in the sense that we all feel the urge to chase these AI skills, and get better at them, right? But before you master what RAG is, or what prompt engineering is, or what context fraud is, it's always important to remember that one skill that is priceless, even more so now with AI agents popping in every corner, which is sound judgment.
Yeah.
Whenever a new technology arrives, like AI, a lot of people might think, or a few of us might think, it magically removes all problems, because unfortunately, there's a lot of people also on LinkedIn that pitch this idea, it's miraculously gonna solve all your problems. Whereas what it's simply doing is moving the bottleneck. So if we think about how this applies to the word, the bottleneck was always has been manual work, which required advanced Excel skills. I remember when I was involved in the interview phase, I would sit down with an analyst and test their Excel skills live. Now, advanced Excel skills are still needed, but less and less so. Also, familiarity with statistical analysis techniques like the least-square method. These were all great and were the bottleneck in rewards. It was slow to find good people with those skills, and it was expensive as well. So we staffed for it. Now, AI and CompTech are changing that. A lot of that heavy lifting work in Excel is being moved to systems, and as such, it can be automated or accelerated at least. So the bottleneck is no longer just those advanced data analytics skills and advanced Excel. The bottleneck is judgment. And by that, I mean the mix of pattern recognition from previous experience and the deep understanding of your local context, right? You want to make sure in your AI journey to continue to rely on good judgment and to practice it, because that's going to become more and more precious with AI automating a lot of the work that was previously the bottleneck. So the sweet spot is not who can write the fanciest prompt. That is important, as we said, but it's more of who can consistently exercise good judgment with AI in their work context. And that's the hardest thing to do, because there's no right and wrong in reward. A good decision is hard to call. If you give that extra $1,000 to a candidate asking, for more money in a negotiation, how do you know if that was a good decision? Will it generate revenue? Will it generate, team attrition? Like, it is hard to know exactly what a good decision is. Yeah. And that's why it's so important to keep practicing good judgment and let AI ask the questions, let the AI automate some of the work. But remember that the final call and judgment is yours. And that is pretty much how I envisage in the future AI working with humans.
Yeah, that's very helpful there, Giac. And I think the other thing you had mentioned earlier was a lot of the role will shift, like you mentioned now, like will shift to the strategy and the creativity and the context, but also like communicating to the people and the relationship management and all of those things. Like humans are always good at that, and humans want to hear about these from other humans. And so I think a lot of it, like you kind of, the comp professional moves up the stack, right? Less spreadsheets and more strategy, essentially. So I think that's a pretty good note. I know we have five more minutes left. So there's so much wealth of knowledge there. Giac, what are your key takeaways? And I'm happy to like share some of my notes too, because there's so much to share.
I'm gonna say this because I'm really passionate about it. Meaning, I fight with this temptation every single day. Because I found myself spending more time on talking to large language modules than watching Netflix and talking to my wife together. So not a great position to be in, but it's generally interesting time to be. But in this world, where AI is becoming a commodity. Like I pay a premium to ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini, but it's not necessary. Like you can definitely get access to these tools without paying. So it is becoming a commodity. Intelligence, or artificial, I should say, is becoming a commodity. It is easily accessible. It is free unless you pay for it. So the risk we are all facing, including myself, is giving in to the temptation of lingering in our comfort zone and switching off our brain, right? So the brain rot, it's actually a big problem, especially with Gen Z that has grown with these tools. And that prevents the one thing that I would take away from this, which is in this commoditized AI world, there's one thing that AI can't take away from you if you're afraid that AI will steal your job, which is sound judgment. Don't let AI make decisions for you. Make AI help you come up with good questions that you didn't think about, so you can process them, you can reflect on them, and then come better equipped with better data and better context when it comes to making decisions. So that would be my first takeaway.
So AI will not necessarily replace employees, but it will replace it. It might, but employees who use AI will replace other employees who don't use AI.
And within those that use AI, those that are switching off their brain and let it rot over time will be replaced by those that have a healthier relationship with AI, I would say.
Yeah. On that hot mic drop, I think it's a good place to pause. Team, folks, if you're on the call, you have more questions, please drop them in the Slack. Please drop them on the LinkedIn's, and Giac and I will get to them as well. You can find Giac on LinkedIn. We'll share his contact information, CompTech Roundup as well, and you can find CandorIQ as well. So please, subscribe and follow if you're interested in similar other topics. But Giac, thank you so much for jamming with me for the last 45 to 50 minutes. Really going in from all the things you're doing, what you've seen succeed, fail, to how the world of total rewards and the role is changing heading into 2026. This was an action-packed, knowledge-packed session, so I really appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure. And congrats to you and the team for all the great work that you're doing at CandorIQ. It's great to follow you and your company blog, and to keep in touch, keep abreast of all the updates you're making in the CompTech space.
I appreciate that as well. All right, that's a wrap.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and